Welcome and thank you for joining the channel. Please help this channel by liking and subscribing. We really appreciate it. There are no ads on this video. If you have a scary story you would like me to share on this channel, comment below and your story will be featured in a video. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy these creepy encounters with the paranormal, accompanied by rain and thunder. I was executed for a crime I didn't commit. The amount of emotions that ran through me on the 12 years I spent on death row were uncountable. Shock, anger, betrayal, dread, and finally terror. I was convicted of the murder of my wife. I guess I understand the initial arrest. Spouses commit 9 out of 10 murders. I'm a big guy with tattoos and a beard. Fit the description of a scary murderer, I suppose. But I'm not, and that night was terrifying. We just moved to a new 1-bedroom apartment. Michelle just told me she was pregnant. I was ecstatic to become a father. I wanted to do a better job than mine did. I heard a bang on the door. I wasn't going to initially open it until I heard whose voice it was. Lo taso. He was one of the managers at the law firm my wife was a receptionist for. His dad owned the place, and Leo thought he was the hot shit. He thought that so much that he even tried it on my wife. Catcalling and pinching her ass. She hates him. It made me sick. When I heard him shouting through the door, I thought I ought to go and give him a piece of my mind. Mistake. I opened it and I was knocked unconscious immediately. When I woke up, our kitchen was covered in blood. Michelle was laying unconscious on the floor. As much as I tried to plead my case after that, nothing worked. That testosterone family was too powerful. And with their dinner plates with the judges and the DA, I was sentenced to death on October 8th. 2024. I remember crying as I went to the chair. 6'3" and 250 pounds, bawling my eyes out. Part of me was excited, though, to be reunited with Michelle. The currents ran through my body, and the burning feeling in my head made it feel like I was going to explode. My fingernails dug into my palms so hard I could feel them bleeding. And then black. And then I was looking down at my body. I wasn't expecting this. I tried everything to pass on, to be at peace, but nothing worked. Today I figured out my purpose, what I needed to do. I'm outside the Dasdale family home right now. Leo's new wife has just taken the kids out. I can feel that surge of energy again, the same as the one I felt in the chair. This time it's a good one. Leo started crying after all the light bulbs began to burst. He was screaming by the time hot water was boiling, and he was being thrown into walls, and more hot water poured onto him. He began begging me for mercy when I showed myself to him. You don't have to beg for mercy from me, Leo. I have to beg it from the Lord. After all the things I'm gonna do to you. In a small town just north of Portland, 4 men had been mauled in the fall of 1955. Most folks had thought it was Kitchener Brown's junkyard dogs. Kitchener had come home from the war a changed man. A grenade had gone off right next to him, which gave him a bum leg and a broken brain. Most folks in town didn't want much to do with him. They were happy to bask in victory and not too keen on staring at what that victory cost. All Kitchener had was Becky, his young wife. Wonderful girl. A little over a year and after he came back home, Becky died in childbirth. Kitchener was left to raise little Sarah all on his own. He made that little girl his life. He even went down to Portland and came back with 3 puppies so his daughter would have more company. If you ran into Kitchener in town, he would talk your damn ears off about every little thing his daughter did. Years went by, and then it all happened. Bodies were found. Strapping men from the mill were found in pieces. Animal tracks were found near their bodies. They looked enough like they belonged to a dog. A bunch of men went to the junkyard and shot Kitchener's dogs right in front of his daughter. Everybody thought the problem was solved until the next night. Sarah had stayed out past dark, crying over the graves of her dogs, and she was attacked. Kitchener had been able to scare off whatever it was with his gun. For the next 3 weeks, nothing happened. Sarah was in a coma, fighting for her life at the doctor's place. Life returned to normal for everyone except Kitchener. He spent 3 weeks talking to everyone in town, asking questions. Where were they that night? One day he went down to Portland, and 3 days later came back with a couple boxes of bullets. In October, there was a town picnic by the lake. Everyone was there. Kitchener stood on a bench. My daughter might die tonight. I narrowed it down. One of you is responsible. I know what happened to you ain't your fault. But I'm begging you to come forward. Don't make me do this. After an awkward moment, some men from Mill dragged him off the bench and away from the picnic. Kitchener was screaming the whole time. Half an hour later, he was back with a couple of guns. Kitchener Brown murdered 13 men that day and got a belly full of bullets himself for the trouble. Somehow, he managed to get back to his daughter's bedside, and he stayed there until nightfall. As the full moon of October rose in the sky, Sarah's fever broke. Kitchener lived just long enough to see her wake up. Come to find out, all these bullets he bought in Portland were special, jacketed in silver. There were no more attacks after that night. Every neighborhood has that one weird kid. For us, it was Abel Casey. He was the skinny kid who was slightly tall despite being only 13. Nobody talked to him, and on the off chance that someone did talk to him, he would always bring up the conversation about skulls, whether it be human or animal skulls. He'd talk about the topic nonstop. So, Abel was the last person I wanted to spend my Saturday with. My mom insisted on it, and I tried to protest, but it was inevitable. And here I was, in the bedroom of someone most of my peers actively avoided. So, Abel began with a giddy smile. So what? I responded, just more creeped out by him. Want to read some comics? Abel asked, reaching under his bed and pulling out a stack of comics. He was the last kid I expected to read comics. We spent the rest of the afternoon reading. At some point, he even got up and made lemonade for us. Abel would sometimes mention weird facts about skulls, like how the friction of the skull is both structurally supported and protected, or the glabella is a key midline landmark of the frontal bone. I didn't understand half of what he said. This was stuff an adult would understand. How do you know so much about this stuff? I asked. Abel smiled wider. My dad taught me about skulls, he answered. Then it dawned on me. Where is your dad? I questioned, realizing I didn't see his dad anywhere in the house, only Abel's mom. Abel went silent and his smile faltered. He stared at me, and an uncomfortable silence followed. Then, as if a switch flipped, his smile came back on. You'll meet him soon, he replied. I was confused by what he said, and that's when I started to feel lightheaded. My vision began to blur. I saw Abel's excited smile before everything went black. I woke up on grass. My mouth felt dry and my head was still dizzy. Abel and his mom stood over me. Happy grins were painted on their faces. "Thank you for treating my son so well," Abel's mom began. "Some kids don't treat him right, but you're different. And because of that," Abel continued, "I want to introduce you to my dad." They both stepped aside, revealing an eagle skull on the ground. Confusion filled my head. I opened my mouth to ask, but soon noticed a large amount of black liquid quickly leaking from the skull's eye socket. Then, the black liquid seemed to morph and change until it became a large adult male. Droplets of that black liquid fell off the thing as it approached me. Abel and his mom's eyes were wide, along with their grins. It stopped when it got close to my trembling body. It let out a hand. "Hello, I am his father. It is a pleasure meeting you," the thing said, distortedly. I wasn't prepared for this. I hadn't even finished my coffee when I walked into the living room to see Benjamin staring out the front window, his eyes fixed on something outside. "He's still out there," Benjamin groaned. "So?" "He's been sitting in the driveway in a foldable lawn chair for hours a day, dude. He comes in at night mostly." "Yeah, and just stares at me for the few hours he's inside. Sometimes he's out there all night." "Well, he pays his rent. Actually, he paid months in advance," I remarked as I took a long sip of coffee. Benjamin was right, though. I could see the top of his sandy blonde hair peeking above the red foldable lawn chair, his head occasionally turning to watch traffic go by. Our roommate looked like he hadn't left that chair for hours. "I don't care if he pays rent," Benjamin nagged. "He freaks me the hell out." "So we're supposed to kick out the guy who actually pays his bills just because he might measure our skulls while we sleep?" "Wait, what?" "He pays his rent. No, the other part." "Yeah, I woke up the other night to him measuring my skull." Benjamin's eyes widened as he turned away from the window and looked at me with deep frustration. "What the hell, dude? That is totally not normal behavior." "Look at him," I replied, pointing my cup of coffee at our roommate in the foldable lawn chair outside. He was looking left as if he saw something of interest. "He's a giant nerd and told me he was just collecting data." "Has he measured my skull?" "How would I know that?" "Did you see him do it? Did you ask him?" Benjamin inquired, furrowing his brow. "How was I supposed to start that conversation, Benjamin?" I asked. "Hey dude, I know you just measured my skull the other night, but did you also do it to the other guy that lives here?" "Jesus Christ, yes." "Well, I'm not sure, but I did see his notes on both of us, and he said you were an impeccable subject." "What the hell does that mean?" "You're asking me as if I know." "You're the one that found him," Benjamin yelled. "What does he do? Is he a serial killer?" "If he was a serial killer, do you think he would lead with that in our emails?" "What does he do then?" "He said he used to work at a lab. Like I said, he's a giant nerd," I answered, as I noticed our roommate was now standing up, waving his arms like a maniac. "Come to think of it, he made me a strange offer the other day." Benjamin noticed it too, as if he was staring out the window. A small white van was pulling in our driveway. "What kind of offer?" "He offered to pay your part of rent too." "You are invited to Justin's 7th birthday, October 20th at 4:30 p.m. I stared in silence at the poster. I had known Martha was for 7 years now as well. In fact, she was one of my old patients and my current friends. But seeing this poster triggered something inside of me. As a doctor and as a friend, I had to end this. She had to listen to me this time. When I first showed up to the birthday party, I was greeted by Martha herself, smiling brightly. "Can you believe he's already 7? She beamed, and I flashed a forced smile back. There were a few other parents there, watching their children play in the backyard. It was a barbecue party, so the parents could also get together and chat while celebrating the birthday boy. Martha called over to Justin, wanting to show him off, and placed her hand on his head. "Martha," I started. I was interrupted by excited laughter as the piano split. Martha swept us away towards the main party, motioning for me to follow her. She began to talk to another parent, and I swallowed hard. "Martha, stop lying to yourself. Justin is not here," I said, in a grave and commanding voice. The party froze. Shocked eyes of parents floated towards my own. Martha turned away slowly, a confused look on her face. "Dr. Rowling? What do you mean? Justin is right here." She motioned to her side and looked down, giving a small smile. "No, Martha, he isn't. Justin is not here." Something changed in her face then, like something broke inside her. "Martha, Justin only exists in your head. I was interrupted again by Martha, clutching at her head. Get away, she started, her eyes darting around. I held my ground. "Martha, Justin is..." "Get away," she screamed, grabbing a pair of steaming tongs that had been sitting over the barbecue. She swung at me, and the tongs caught me clean across the face. Burning pain erupted as the scalding hot metal hissed against my skin. I fell over, and she drove the tongs into my leg with a tormented cry. Steam and agony shot up my leg. Martha screamed in torment, her face morphing into a twisted mask of pained torture. I couldn't reason with her anymore. With a burst of adrenaline, I dove and tackled her. In an attempt to subdue her, she thrashed, and the tongs seared against my skin. Then the others jumped in. The birthday party ended prematurely. Martha was calmed at length, and I was taken to the hospital. Justin didn't exist. I knew because I was the one who had to break it to her. I was the one who had to tell her her son died at birth, and I was the one who couldn't stop her from leaving the hospital room with an empty baby carrier and an imaginary son. 2 mornings ago, I was walking on Jefferson Avenue in Red Mace near the school and near the bakery. Margot's Bakery, with the wide window and cozy lights and the gold leaf croissant sign hanging over the door. I was at the intersection, near it at 28th Street, and the traffic light was green. I remember that. It was green. A detail I have to tell someone. Important. You must remember. A boy passed me, running out into the street. The light was green. His light was green. It happened very fast. A Ford SUV, something boxy. I've never been good with cars. It clipped the boy, and that was enough. He spun and fell, and ungainly kind of plopped down onto the asphalt. New asphalt. Black. Wet-looking. Oily. The boy was still moving. It kept happening very fast. A black pickup truck, a black sedan. Their light was red, I remember that. The boy was red and pink, pinned and stretched and pulled like taffy, like clocks of old red paint dragged along by mangy, rough bristles. The sound. He didn't scream. He became that tireless sound of bubble gum between the teeth. I dialed the police. The cars kept coming. Yellow convertible, red light, black squad car, white van, red road. In the window of the bakery, a dozen faces pressed against the glass, staring, watching. Divulging, pulsing plums of fog. Had they seen it too? That the light was green, that it still was. The cars kept coming and coming. Maybe they hadn't, maybe not, because all of their eyes, their manic, sharp gazes were fixed on me, and they never stopped blinking. I remember that too. Today, at Jefferson and 28th, the city looks empty, and the light is green, and the new asphalt has lost some of its slickness. A bit of tattered cotton, a flattened clump of hair, and for me, every light is green. And the wary faces of Margot's bakery, which intently gray and giddy as the hungry dead, and my car, ideals forward timidly, grinding away the silence, thumping like a panicked heart. And a woman shrieks, a ghostly sound, and the light is green, and I'm terrified to stop because of what I will see and what I will remember. And I remember that the light was green. I remember that. The light was green. My light was green. I've been dating Maya for 3 months now, and I really do love her. But there's a major problem. We haven't gone past first base. I've done everything in my power to appease her. I started going with her to the gym when she asked, and I've even been eating vegan since she said it was important to her. But no matter what I do, every time I try to get lucky, she says she isn't ready. I don't know if I can take this anymore. I mean, I've got needs. After getting home from date night, I started contemplating how I was gonna get over the finish line. I was at a loss, and honestly thought it might be better to cut my losses and break up. That's when Maya pulled me in close and popped the question. Honey, would you still love me if I was warm? Huh? Would you still love me if I was warm? What a dumb question. I'd love you if you were a fried bologna sandwich, babe. I'm being serious, Maya said, gently pounding her fist on my chest. I feel like you wouldn't love me if I was warm. Maya, nothing could ever stop me from loving you. I leaned in and kissed her softly on the forehead. If that wasn't enough to get laid, then I give up. I was hoping you'd say that, because I want to take our relationship to the next level. Follow me. Maya grabbed my shirt and pulled me down into the basement. I had never seen her in the basement before. Maybe she had a freaky sex dungeon. Maybe we wouldn't have to break up after all. Close your eyes, Maya said, and I obliged. She tugged my shirt like a leash, and I followed into a cold, damp room. Okay, now open them. I opened my eyes, but it was dark and I couldn't see very well. I've heard some girls like to do it in the dark because they're self-conscious. So what do you think? Maya asked. I turned around hoping to see Maya naked, but instead I was face to face with an earthworm the size of an anaconda. It had human eyes on the top of its head, Maya's eyes. What's wrong? When Maya spoke, her mouth split in 4, revealing hundreds of pin-like teeth. You said you still loved me. On the inside I was panicking, but on the outside I kept my cool. I can work with this, I said. I'd dump her tomorrow, or maybe next week, so I didn't seem like dick. Maya let out a little chirp, slithered over and wrapped herself around my leg. She was purring. It was actually so cute. Then something poked my thigh. Maya bit me. I tried to shake loose, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I haven't been honest, honey, Maya said. I only dated you for your body, because it will make a delicious meal. It comes again tonight. A creaking up the stairs. 1 step, pause. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, back step, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I snatch the journal from my nightstand, jump out of bed, and rush over to the small stand on the top of the dresser. I quickly glance through the journal as I rearrange the small stones on the pedestal. 8, 9, 10, 11. The one farthest to the right moves to the front. 13. I replace the middle with a fresh stone. 15. It rapidly pounds on the door. I swap the inner stones. It stops. I struggle to control my breathing. My heart beats frantically. Why did my father leave this goddamn house with me in his will? Every night I have to satisfy this monster. When I tried running, it followed me to my hotel. Staring down from the foot of my bed, it squeezed my leg until it felt like my skin was gonna pop, and bruised my thigh down to the bone. That was a warning. I'll only get one. I don't know what it is, and neither did my father or his father. All I have left are their ticks. I always thought my dad was crazy, staying up all night, jotting down every squeak and thump, obsessing over the stones and their pedestal, but then I saw it for myself. It was about a week after I moved in. The sounds of footsteps running up the stairs startling me awake. Jasper, my dog, was in bed with me, and he immediately dove towards the door and started barking. When the bedroom door burst open, deep shadows slithered inside, and poor Jasper protected me. He leapt forward, and it snatched him up with a single long-fingered hand. With the flick of its wrist, it snapped his neck. Jasper saved my life, and look what it's become. The journal my father left me explained how to keep it at bay. You have to listen to the house. Every creak of the staircase, every rattle of the pipes, every knock on the doors and walls, each one is a code. Instructions on what to do with the stones. Swap this one for that one. Replace this with that. Add some. Remove some. But there's no way to hurt it. My grandfather tried everything and couldn't even scratch it. The grandfather clock echoes downstairs. It's midnight once again. The pipes rattle. The walls thump. And I hear it on the stairs again. 1 step, pause. 1, 2, 3, pause. My hand hesitates above the stones. What's the point? It will never stop. 4, 5, pause. No. I have to because my sister will be next. I start swapping the stones. I'm all that's allowing her to have a normal life. I have to continue. I move too quickly, and a stone drops, bounces out of its grove, and clatters to the floor. Was it enough? I hear it pounding on the door. Was it enough? Whatever you think you saw, ignore it. No matter what you think you saw stalking you from the shadows, you didn't see it. You might just get lucky. You might be in your room alone, and the shadows you see in the corner might only be laundry. There is a chance that the worst thing in that dark alley are the raccoons. And it was just their glowing eyes that you saw peering out at you. Why take that chance when it could be much safer to ignore what your eyes have seen? And maybe mutter a prayer so silent that the long fingers tapping on your window drown it out. So ignore them. You never saw pale, pupilless eyes in the dark alley as you walk alone at night. You never heard your friend call from the deep in the forest on that camping trip you took alone. And you definitely never felt something tug on your sheets in the dead of the night when you were just about to fall asleep. It was the wind you were hearing. You only saw a trick of the light, and there's nothing in your room. The shadowy thing that turns out to be a pile of clothes on your chair when you flip on the lights must never be acknowledged. The long lanky figure hiding in the trees. That beam in the flashlight is only sticks. Can never know it is there. Because if you stare too long into its glowing eyes 8 feet high, it might not only be a trick of the light, and if you startle in your bed, you might just see a pile of clothes twitch towards you. In the dark of the night, things may creep from the unknown places of mind into reality. The things that live in Kadath that our imaginations lend to the world. They lurk in the dark places of the mind, and in the late hours of night, when the world is still and the air is stale, they can creep into our side of reality, silent and terrible as the night they have it. The creatures from far-off worlds can find their way into our own, but it is only when we let these grotesque abominations into our own minds that they become real. The only evil thing that enters the world is the evil we let in. The lurking obscenities that have no place in sane reality still rely on us in our inclination to see the rabid faces in the laundry pile, to hear the rough and ragged breathing in the midnight wind, and to feel that which is never there. So ignore them. Ignore the bulbous pale eyes peering at you from the deep within your closet. Ignore the skittering of blood-soaked claws on the cement during your nightly walk. And ignore that which you know cannot possibly be there in any world that has not gone insane. Because otherwise, you might learn that it has. "You're having me admitted?" I screamed at my brother. "You need help, Tim," he responds quietly. "Help I can't give. I'm not trying to hurt myself. I'm not a fucking lunatic." Did you forget what happened yesterday? You asked me to film you drilling holes into yourself." "Yeah. And? That's confidential. Don't tell anyone that I've discovered the truth." "What truth?" I turn up the radio and lean in to whisper. This isn't real. I wouldn't have gotten hurt. We would have just both seen the truth. Look, go in there, get help. Otherwise, he doesn't have the balls to say it, but I know what he means. He'll have me arrested for being insane. What type of asshole won't trust their own brother? Fine. I kick the door open and storm off to this stupid mental health facility thing. I'll prove it without his help. I sign in, writing down a bunch of bullshit. Thankfully, Pat hadn't told these people my plans. Still, there's probably someone following me, so I'll bide my time until it's dark. They think I'll be tucked in, and I'll sneak right out of here. They'll probably be chasing me in those black SUVs, and I'll just hop the fence. "Excuse me, Mr. Genzo?" "No. Why can't anyone pronounce my name right? Just call me Tim." "Okay, Tim. It's time for you to go." "What?" "Your group therapy session ended a while ago." "Wow. I guess I must have zoned out." "Do you need help calling the ride home?" "No." I can't let anyone know my plans. I walk home. They'll still be watching me, but I know I'll just have to wait until midnight. I gather my things, and I sit and wait. Pat lives alone, and he loaned me a spare key, so it's easy to get inside. I find him laying in bed, asleep. I grab his camera, set it up, and start filming, and flip on the lights. Pat rolls over before sitting up and rubbing his eyes. "Tim, what the hell is going on?" "Look, I'll prove it," I say, holding up the knife. He gasps, but doesn't move. "Look." I slash the knife into my arm. Just like I thought, there's no pain. It slices a deep cut into my arm without a spot of blood. Pat looks on with confusion. It's time to wake him up. I stab him, he gasps, but not in pain. His jaw drops as the knife cleanly enters and exits his shoulder. He shudders as horror crosses his face. I drop the knife and wrench the wound on my arm open further. See? It's fake. There's no blood. Rather, a deep red, beady gel slowly pumps out. It's all plastic, all the way down. I hold my hand out to my brother. Now will you let me help you spread the truth? Confusingly, he starts screaming and runs away. I watch him leave as the walls start spinning. I stumble and fall over. Did someone drug me? There's no way to explain it, Bruce said. You need to see it. He'd been babbling for 3 days about his road trip. Coming home, he took a detour into a different state, skirting a country he'd never heard of, when, in the dead of night, he spotted a mob of people graded in the town square. When they turned towards his headlights, he said they had no faces. They swarmed, threw themselves at his car, punched the windows, clawed at the doors, desperate to grab him, to pull him outside. Bruce was also on more drugs than I could name, so it was hard to take anything he said seriously. But I had nothing better to do. I joined him to his return trip to put his mind at ease. It was a long drive, 5 hours out of the way, but we finally made it. He parked on a hill overlooking the town, allegedly overrun with nightmare creatures. I don't understand, he said. I do. You need to get sober, man. The town, by all definitions, was normal, if quiet, faceless demons weren't prowling the streets. In fact, the whole area looked abandoned. Bullshit, I know what I saw, man. Dude, it was late. You were tired. Let's head one town over. Maybe I got it wrong. By then I was annoyed. We had wasted the entire day, but for my friend's sake, I decided to grin and bear it. We got back on the highway until we hit the next small community a few miles away. That's when I noticed it. At the edge of the town, as if split by a line, the world lost definition, like textures in a video game struggling to load in. Everything from the grass to the trees to the buildings turned blurry, featureless outlines of their former selves. It's a line, Bruce said excitedly, and it's moving. He stopped the car. There, look. Dozens of people paced aimlessly down the main street. Their movements were stilted, forced, like puppets on a string. Each one had the exact same height and build. None of them had faces. We gotta report this, Bruce said. Gotta show someone. Before I could protest, he took out his phone and started a video. Too far, he said, unlocking the door. You can't see them. I sat in silent horror as he exited the car and crept closer to the town. I watched him zoom in on one of the bodies. He turned and gave me a thumbs up. Then the line shifted. His face vanished, leaving only skin. Every faceless head in the area suddenly snapped towards me, and then they ran. I hopped into the driver's seat, frantically tried starting the car, but Bruce, or what remained of him, was already there, pulling me from the car, dragging me towards the town, towards them, towards the invisible line where the people became mannequins. I screamed and begged, but I heard nothing because my mouth was already gone.